Welcome to Consults Here Inc. and Interlink IQ. To conduct a document review utilizing the Environmental Monitoring Program under the SQF Module 2.4.8, first check if the document title matches the uploaded file name on the dashboard. In this instance, we do have the same titles as the Environmental Monitoring Program. Next, both must have the same document code. For this example, we do have 2.4.8p0. Since this is a template, we indicate the PCQI as the account initials. However, we can customize the code based on the company's initials. For the page number, we use the page XFY format. Ensure that it reflects the current page position and the total page number of the document. Then insert the company logo here, together with the company name, the company address, and enter the designated department. For the originated by section, it can be the food safety, quality assurance, or the quality control personnel of the company. The originator ensures the implementation of the quality management and document control system. Enter the name of the originator, affix the signature, input the position title, and the date originated. For the reviewed by section, it can be the personnel assigned in the Quality Management Department who reviews the drafted document or its revision for accuracy and implementation. Enter the name of the reviewer, affix the signature, input the position title, and the date reviewed. For the approved by section, it must be the person in the C-level management who has approval authority. Enter the name of the approver, affix the signature, input the position title, and the date approved. The revision date is the same as the date originated or drafted by the author. For the effective date, it is the date the document was signed and approved. The publication date is when the document is published for distribution and initiated personnel training. The implementation date is when the document is distributed and personnel training is completed. For the supersedes, put original for the initial issuance of the document. For any revisions, reflect the initial revision date before the current revision. Please be reminded that this section must be properly filled out to be compliant. Now we will focus on the components of the program. First is purpose. The purpose is the implementation of any certification standard or compliance with a regulatory requirement. For this program, it is for implementation with the SQF Module 2 Edition 9 for food manufacturing under Clause 2.4.8. First, to implement 2.4.8.1, a risk-based environmental monitoring program shall be in place for all category processes and immediate surrounding areas which impact manufacturing processes. The responsibility and methods for the environmental monitoring program shall be documented and implemented. Second, to implement 2.4.8.2, an environmental sampling and testing schedule shall be prepared. It shall, at a minimum, detail the applicable pathogens or indicator organisms to test for in that industry. List the number of samples to be taken and the frequency of sampling. Outline the locations in which samples are to be taken and the rotation of locations as needed. And describe the methods to handle elevated or undesirable results. And third, to implement 2.4.8.3, environmental testing results shall be monitored, tracked, and trended, and preventative actions shall be implemented where unsatisfactory results or trends are observed. The second component of the program is scope. The scope of the program is based on the purpose and serves as a guide in defining and describing the layout of the procedure. It includes definition, the environmental monitoring program requirement, pathogen, indicator organism, and spoilage organism. It also includes zoning for environmental monitoring, the microbiological process controls, and verification and corrective actions. The third component is policy. The policies are the rules set by the company as their implementation guide. First, each element in the environmental monitoring program is addressed to minimize the potential for product recontamination. Each of these elements have a detailed, documented plan to address them. A lapse in any one element increases substantially the risk of product recontamination. Second, prevent ingress or spread of pathogens in the processing facility. Third, enhance the stringency of hygiene practices and controls in the primary control area. Fourth, apply hygienic design principles to building and equipment design. Fifth, prevent or minimize growth of pathogen, spoilage organism, and indicator organism within the facility. Sixth, establish a raw materials or ingredients control program. Seventh, validate control measures to inactive pathogens. Eighth, validate cleaning and sanitation program. And ninth, establish procedures for verification of pathogen, spoilage and indicator microorganisms controls, and corrective actions. The fourth component of the program is procedure. The procedure is the step-by-step process and the actual implementation of the policy. It includes 1. Environmental monitoring program requirements such as the decision tree for EMP requirement and the process steps. It also includes the environmental monitoring for pathogens, a defined monitoring of the environment of a category facility for pathogenic microorganisms. The goal of a EMP is to find and eliminate pathogenic contamination in the processing environment. They are typically used to 1. Verify an overall food safety system or specific components of a food safety system, and 2. To provide early indication of potential food safety hazards. Third is the environmental monitoring for indicator organism. An environmental monitoring of the category facility for determining the general microbial condition of food or environment. The presence of indicator organisms does not provide any information on the potential presence or absence of a specific pathogen, nor does it provide an assessment on potential public health risk, but it will determine the hygienic status of the processing equipment and environment, validate and or verify cleaning sanitation, and assess post-processing contamination. Fourth, the environmental monitoring spoilage organism, such as an environmental monitoring of the category facility for determining the verification activity of sanitation, which will contribute to microbial quality, will increase the risk of spoilage incident. Seek and destroy process, and product type and target microorganism. Fifth is the EMP team. EMP team assembled to understand the EMP process flow and emphasize identifying potential points of product recontamination. Use EMP team meeting log record when EMP meetings are conducted. Sixth, under procedure, is zoning and division on environmental monitoring. Under zoning and division on environmental monitoring, first is zoning. For Zone 1, areas direct product or food contact surfaces where the product is exposed to the plant equipment and environment prior to sealing in the primary packaging. Zone 1 services identified slicers, peelers, feelers, hoppers, screens, conveyor belts, air blowers, employee hands, knives, racks, and work tables. For Zone 2, non-product contact areas in the plant that are closely adjacent to product contact surfaces. Zone 2 services identified processing equipment exterior and framework, refrigeration units, equipment control panels and switches. For Zone 3, non-product contact surfaces that are open post-lethality product processing areas but not closely adjacent to Zone 1 services. Zone 3 services have the possibility of leading to product cross-contamination. Zone 3 services identified forklifts, hand trucks, carts, wheels, air return covers, hoses, walls, floors, and drains. For Zone 4, areas remote from post-lethality product processing areas. Zone 4 areas, if not maintained in good hygienic condition, can lead to cross-contamination of Zones 1, 2, and 3. Zone 3 services identified locker rooms, cafeterias, entry or access ways, loading bays, finished product storage areas, and maintenance areas. Next is division. Under division is hygienic zoning. Division of a category facility into different areas to avoid food contamination risks. Areas are designated based on risk and can include non-production areas, basic GMP areas, and where processed RTE product is exposed to the environment prior to packaging. Hygienic zones should not be confused with environmental monitoring sampling zones, which are used to designate target areas for environmental sampling. Also, restrict movement of hazards from low-risk areas of the factory to medium-risk areas and then to high-risk areas over or near exposed product. For uncontrolled area, these are areas where there are no products, for example, offices and employee parking area. For low-risk area, these are areas where there is product but none is exposed to the environment, for example, raw material and finished product storage area. For medium-risk area, areas where product is exposed. For high-risk area, areas where product is sensitive to pathogenic growth and goes to sensitive consumers. For high-care zones, areas over or near exposed product where there is a high probability of contamination. And for transition zones, areas where barriers and routine exist to prevent the movement of contaminants between areas. Next is sampling procedure. Sampling procedure includes sampling methodology, which you may refer to EMP sampling procedure, and the Environmental Monitoring Sampling Guide and Frequency. Next is type of testing for pathogen environmental monitoring, which includes 1. Surface sampling using sponges or swabs, which you may refer to EMP sampling procedure. 2. Product residue scrapings, or fines, or dust samples, which you may refer to EMP sampling procedure. 3rd, water samples. 4th, air samples, which you may refer to air quality monitoring program. And 5th, the finished product samples. 9th under procedure is microbial identification, which includes 1. Identification matrix. 2. Microbiological criteria such as 1. Microbiological standards for ready-to-eat foods. 2. Standard plate count. For Category A, applies to ready-to-eat foods in which all components are fully cooked for immediate sale or consumption. For Category B, applies to ready-to-eat foods that are fully cooked with further handling or processing before consumption, for example, custard-filled pastry. And for Category C, food that contained and cooked fermented ingredients or fresh fruit and vegetables, for example, takeaway fruit and yogurt mix. Third is Listeria monocytes. For food group 1, ready-to-eat foods that will support the growth of Listeria monocytes and has been stored prepared for greater than 1 day. For example, packaged sandwiches. For food group 2, ready-to-eat food that will not support the growth of Listeria monocytes and has been stored prepared for greater than 1 day. For example, salads and dips with a low pH. And for food group 3, ready-to-eat food that will be consumed immediately and has not been stored prepared for greater than 1 day. For example, freshly made sushi. Next is results interpretation, followed by recommended microbiological indicator limits for equipment cleaning before and after application of sanitizer and post-heat treatment. If target or limits exceed, reassess SSOPs and GMPs. Fifth is frequency. Swabbing frequencies are determined based on criticality indexes relevant to each specific processing areas. 10th under procedure is microbial process control. The microbial process control steps. 1. Elimination of the resident organisms of concern is measured by presence or absence in the verification. indicator site, and investigative sampling programs. Obtaining negative results from these sites over a long term is a key indicator of elimination. 2. Control movement by managing the vectors and pathways. The effectiveness of barriers and hurdles to entry and movement within the exposed product area measure the control of movement. Third, utilize process control methodology to measure and predict loss of control. Degree of microbiological process control is evaluated by plotting collected data on control charts and calculation of statistical capability indices. And fourth, 5 stages of microbiological process control within plants, which are doubt, awareness, enlightenment, preventive, and predictive. Lastly, under procedure is personnel training, which includes environmental monitoring program and applicable forms, GMPs, documentation control, SSOPs, EMP sampling procedure, and EMP verification and corrective action. The fifth component of the program is responsibility. The responsibility of the person is indicated. It covers what to perform to comply with the procedure or the policy. The EMP team might consist of the QA manager and supervisor from the QA or QC department, the sanitation manager from the sanitation department, maintenance manager from the maintenance department, consultant or subject matter expert from the compliance department, production manager from the production department, and the laboratory testing or microbiologist from the QA or QC department. For the food safety team lead, the PCQI or SQF practitioner, hazard analysis, hygienic design assessment, facility, equipment, then utensil sampling procedures. For the food safety team lead, the PCQI or SQF practitioner, it includes training and implementation, such as hygienic design, construction, and maintenance of the facility, hygienic operation and maintenance of the processes and equipment, hygienic zoning, application of appropriate cleaning and disinfection procedures, and training of personnel in food safety and hygienic practices. It also includes microbial monitoring objectives such as verifying the effectiveness of cleaning and sanitation practices, which you may refer to as SSOP. Determining the frequency required for cleaning and sanitation, which you may refer to SSOP. Determining the presence of foodborne pathogens or their indicators in the environment. Discovering environmental sources of spoilage organisms. Determining the frequency required for special maintenance procedures, for example, changing air filters, which you may refer to equipment maintenance program. Lastly, evaluating the hygienic design and fabrication of food processing equipment and facilities. Next is corrective action. The corrective action is the process of taking appropriate steps to eliminate causes of nonconformities or other undesirable situations. In the event a pathogen is detected during testing, you may refer to EMP verification and corrective actions. Train all applicable personnel on this policy, and non-compliance will require retraining or dismissal from job duties or termination of employment. Seventh is review quality. The review section serves as guidelines for conducting the annual or periodic review. 1. Control procedures for environmental monitoring shall be reviewed as part of the initial desk audit. Subsequently, these processes will be audited as part of each site audit through observation, review of records, and interviews with operating personnel. Evidence may include there are control procedures in place for food processes. Control procedures are effectively implemented for food processes. High-risk areas are adequately segregated from raw material handling areas. High-risk areas are only serviced by staff dedicated to that function. Post-process areas are not at risk from pedestrian walkways. Protective clothing is provided in high-risk areas. Dedicated tools and equipment are available in high-risk areas. Product transfer between the equipment and between high-risk areas and other areas poses no risk to the product. An effective environmental monitoring program is in place. The EMP includes a sampling schedule and responsibility for sampling. Swabbing includes transfer points and joints in equipment, and swabbing records are maintained. Second is the EMP review. The environmental monitoring program is reviewed and assessed on an annual basis by the EMP team, utilize assessment form, and data trending and analysis shall be used as a tool for interpreting and validating environmental monitoring program effectiveness. Next is reviews and approvals. The pathogen testing and frequency is for the QA supervisor from the QA or QC department. The pathogen test result reviews and determination and corrective action preventive action is for the QA manager from the QA or QC department. The documentation validation and archiving and the record keeping of electronic copy is for the consultant or subject matter expert from the compliance department. Eighth is document reference. The reference documents are the set of documents used to implement and monitor a program, policy, or procedure. It includes the material sample submission log record, the EMP team, the EMP training plan, EMP equipment register, environmental monitoring testing schedule, microbiological testing program schedule, the EMP approved equipment, utensil, and tools, the material sample submission log record, finished product microbiological test log, the food safety meeting minutes, the process flow form, and the assessment form. Ninth is references. The reference section is composed of guides utilized to implement the program. Examples are the certification guide, regulations, and other widely accepted scientific journals, research, and the like. It must comply with the standard format citation, which can be based on either MLA, APA, or the Chicago style, and update the access date. Lastly, history. The history section is where we can update the program if there are any changes or revisions made in the document. If there is a revision, enter the revision number, followed by the revision date, then the description of the change made, the name of the author or the originator, and the title or department of the author or the originator. Thank you for participating in this document review. Content presented are for training purposes only and are based on the interpretation of standards and best practices and must be customized for your intended use. To fully customize your programs, policies, procedures, forms for records, and lessons for training, you may contact Interlink IQ or Consultier Inc. at services@interlinkiq.com or simply call 202-982-3002. For free access, visit interlinkiq.com.